Y'all, this is a story of a woman earning a very prestigious degree and just throwing it all away for absolutely ridiculous things. On another note, have y'all heard that people are smuggling drugs into jail by soaking them into paper? I had no clue. Listen to this story. So a 50-year-old attorney from Massachusetts was arrested after police say she tried to smuggle drug-infused paper to a man who was incarcerated in a federal prison in Rhode Island. Teresa DeJoseph was taken into custody yesterday and charged with 1 count each of possession with intent to distribute a controlled substance, providing a prohibited object to an inmate, and making a false statement. Others who are accused of partaking in the smuggling scene are 21-year-old Hanasa Stedford of Connecticut, 46-year-old Sean Hart, and 26-year-old Samuel Douglas. 3 of them are facing 1 count of conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute a controlled substance and 1 count of providing a prohibited object to an inmate. Reportedly, Sean and Samuel are incarcerated at a detention facility in Rhode Island. So allegedly, on July 9th of last year, Teresa used her credentials as an attorney to meet with Sean in a visiting room. Keep in mind, he was incarcerated. The visiting room did not have plexiglass. And this is often how attorneys will do business with their clients if they're incarcerated. She allegedly filled out paperwork saying she was Sean's attorney of record, but she wasn't. Reportedly, Sean had been a detainee at the facility since June of last year. So he had been incarcerated for about a month when this happened. This was after he had a ton of drug charges in Massachusetts. So a correctional officer who was on duty at the time of their little meeting stated Teresa was acting just a bit strange when she was meeting with the inmate, who again was Sean. For example, she was slouching and acting very suspicious and watching the correctional officer's every move. Shortly after Sean and Teresa's little meeting, it was discovered that she actually didn't represent him for any criminal or civil matters, nothing at all. Reportedly, she had also been sending photos of herself to him and placing sports bets for him. It was said soon after that meeting, Teresa's contact privileges for Sean were prohibited, or her visitation privileges were. Teresa eventually allegedly sent out some emails after that to Sean's warden, stating that she was repulsed about the allegations of misconduct against her. She also stated that an unidentified opposing party had served Sean with many documents and that there were very complicated rules and procedures and case law that must be explained to him in person. She said it was a very complicated situation. In other words, she just needed to see him in person. So fast forward to September of last year, it says she sent the warden another email claiming that during her previous visit, she was illegally searched because a correctional officer had searched the paperwork she had brought with her and reviewed each piece of paper with her. She said that included very sensitive stuff and material that should only be for the eyes of the attorney. So she's been allowed to start back the visits with Sean in November of last year. Unreal. So on December 1st of last year, she visited him at approximately 4:20 p.m. Approximately. Most of you will know what 420 means. If you don't, look it up. When a correctional officer looked at the materials that Teresa said she wanted to bring in for the visit, officer said he saw multiple pieces of paper that looked like they had been wet and then dried. It was said it was thicker than normal paper and appeared discolored. So based on the officer's experience in identifying drugs in settings like this, he confiscated the papers. There were 10 pieces of papers, and these were from Teresa, and he labeled them possible synthetic marijuana, also known as K2. The 10 pieces of paper were seized by the Professional Standards Unit, placed in storage until they were collected by the FBI on December 4th. Authorities said the papers included printed text about capital punishment cases, in other words, nothing to do with Sean. Reportedly, synthetic marijuana is often soaked into papers and then torn into smaller pieces and then sold throughout prisons. I had no clue. A single piece of paper is estimated to be worth up to $4,000. That just depends on the availability of contraband at the time. When Teresa was asked about the papers, she allegedly first told authorities that she had picked the pieces of paper up from her printer and brought them to the jail. The papers did test positive for residue of multiple Schedule I substances, controlled substances. Authorities found out that one of the other men I mentioned earlier, Samuel, had ordered his girlfriend, Hanasa, I mentioned her earlier, they were the ones also arrested, to deliver the drug-soaked papers to Teresa so that she could bring them to Sean. So several weeks later, Teresa was questioned about the papers by the feds, and then she claimed that she had allegedly gone to Staples earlier that day, the store, to print off the materials, and she believes the papers were added to her file there at the store. Really? But when the authorities kept questioning, she couldn't tell them which Staples she went to, nor could she provide a receipt. Unreal. So Hanasa and Teresa were scheduled to make their first court appearance yesterday. Teresa was eventually released on a $10,000 unsecured bond. This is absolutely unbelievable, guys. You go through all that training and school and years of hard work for what? Just to run it by providing drugs to inmates and sending pictures of yourself to them? Really? Make it make sense. It just doesn't. All that time and money in law school just down the drain.